strategy and improving customer service experience. Alexander holds a master's degree in international business from the Vienna University of Economics and Business Administration. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Alexander Mahr.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex. You can call me Alex. Let data drive the story. So I'm the odd guy. So first I'm between you and lunch. So I'm going to try to make it fast. And then I'm the guy talking about data at a content event. All of you, most of you being content marketers, I hope I can share some relevant stories. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Austrian. I live in Melbourne. I travel around Asia Pacific. I run What's Marketing for IBM in Asia Pacific. So I lead the practice that basically helps marketers apply artificial intelligence in what you do. And I want to quickly run through a couple of stories around artificial intelligence, how you can apply it, and how it can basically help you win the customer experience and basically win the customer's heart. So that's the idea. Now I gave you some data points about me. That's how I wanted to start. But you don't probably know me by now because all of those are some factual data points. I want to look behind. I want you to actually introduce myself in a little bit of a different manner. So let's look at some data. When you do these kind of talks, it's hard to introduce yourself. So that's what I asked my colleague Watson. So what I did is basically I took all my blogs, everything that I write, and basically fed it into the AI engine. And the AI engine came back with some insights about myself. So what you see here on the slide, I hope you can read it, is that I'm an expressive person. I like traditional values, but I also like to bring forward positive change. And what my boss really likes is that I like to challenge authority. Anyway, so there's some more information about myself, right? And this is I think the key point I want to make is when you think about data and content, you really have to try to understand your customers and your consumers and how they're going to actually use and see that content, right? How are they going to react? Are they going to convert? You think about the short-lived content that we talked about, is that something that is going to resonate? And if it's going to resonate, why? You want to actually see what's happening so you can reproduce the positive outcomes. But most of the data out there is all over the place. So let's look into what AI is doing for you guys in the marketing department to help you look into some of those data points. So the first thing that I wanted to do is I don't actually have 4 points for you to take away. I only have a link. And the first thing that I want you to do is, I hope you can read it. It's at the very bottom here. It's a little bit longer link, but the one thing you could write down is called personality insights. So I want to invite you to try yourself how your words that you use are going to define you as a human being. And then go online, Google it, personality insights, you'll find a demo. You can enter your own text, you can enter your own Twitter profile, you can use your own blogs, you can use your colleagues' emails to see what kind of personality they have. The point why I want you to try it is, what you get back is a lot of data insights about an individual, right? So what are you really doing? What are you really interested in? Hopefully you'll agree with what the result is, but then you can find that this is some insights that you can use to look into what your customers are doing. And so what we, for instance, do as a case study, most of the brands that we work with use this type of technology to look into how people are working with them in the call centers. And then basically feed that call center conversation into this engine to figure out what is the other human being on the other side really thinking about, what are their values. To better then tailor the content that we deliver to these individuals. All right, so personality insights, one takeaway. All right. I want to talk about AI and marketing. And when I talk about AI and marketing, I actually want to invite you on a quick journey. So this is the interactive part. So let's see how we do this. Does anybody know in the room what these 3 dates stand for? So we're talking about AI. Any idea what the first date could stand for? 1996. Anybody? All right, I'm going to help you out. The first one is when Kasparov was beaten by Deep Blue in a chess game. So it's the first ever time that a human being lost, best human player lost a chess game against a computer. Does anybody know what the second date might stand for in AI? I'll make this fast for you. That's when IBM basically one with Watson in Jeopardy. The reason why I give you these dates to tell you why this is important is because you've got to understand where all of this is coming from. All of this AI talk and marketing is coming from one key aspect, trying to better understand how human beings use language and then basically find those data points. And last but not least, anybody out there that knows the last date? That's been pretty recent. There you go, perfect. That's AlphaGo, so that's Google's AI engine. So behind all of these are games, and you might ask yourself, well, that's all interesting, AI, but I'm here in the Philippines, how can I apply all of that to my marketing department when I basically work on content? So that's something I'm going to try to answer today. So let me start by pointing out that the next game we might actually be losing is ping pong. That's just a funny side note from the CES conference this year, but this is an AI robot from a company called Mahr. So most of you basically are aware that the market out there is changing, technology is evolving, content is evolving. We heard about this today in the keynotes. We know that there is different changes in behavior. This is Zuckerberg introducing the VR capability. The interesting point there is that nobody's watching him. I think that was a little bit freaky, but I think you get the point. So technology is changing. Customers are evolving. So this is probably the first conference that I'm at where we're doing a groupie. There is a lot of things where we do a selfie. And this is actually, I like this very much, Hillary Clinton with this picture. There's only 2 people in the picture, so I hope you can see it, but there's only 2 people in the picture that actually watch her directly. So probably the old school people. Everybody else is basically taking a selfie. And think about this, right? The short-lived content part that we've just heard, and the stories that are produced that are short-lived and basically show how people consume content differently, that's, I think, something that you're challenged with, and you will be challenged with this even more, because not only are the customers evolving, their experiences are evolving. Has anybody watched the Super Bowl here? Is there any football fans? Well, does anybody like Justin Timberlake? Yeah. There you go. So that's much better. So let's not talk about sports, let's talk about Justin Timberlake. So he did the halftime show. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's this famous moment when he walks up the stairs and then he's singing right next to a 13-year-old Ryan McKenna. That's the guy next to him. And they did the most famous selfie this year with the star doing the show. Apparently this was not planned. I would be surprised if there wasn't somebody with this idea behind the scenes. But anyway, so what happened next? Does anybody know? So if anybody's seen this, what happened the very next moment? So you're at the halftime show, you paid a fortune to do this. The very next thing is that Ryan McKenna didn't actually care who was standing next to him. He was more interested in his phone and trying to post the experience that he just had, right? So technology is changing, your customers are changing, and the attention that they're paying to your content is eroding. To be honest, they probably don't really care. There's so much out there that their attention is flip-flopping between these topics. So my point is that if you cannot grab a 13-year-old's attention at a Super Bowl for more than 5 seconds, just imagine how hard it is for you to grab your customer's attention for longer, right? And this is only going to change. So what are we going to do about it? Well, the first thing we should basically try to be aware of is that all of these changes mean that there's much more data out there. And how that data really looks and feels like, I want to show you with a little video. So let's have a look. All right, I hope that was interesting and made you think a little bit. I hope you have a longer attention span than the 7 seconds that is mentioned in the video, and I hope you can still pay attention to what I'm talking about. So let's try to keep rushing on. There's some additional data points. So I think you get the point about data, you get the point about short-lived content. The one thing I want to point out to you guys really is at the bottom here. There is 500 hours of video content being uploaded on YouTube every minute, right? Just think about that. Your content should matter, but the content that's created out there by individuals and companies is so large that in order to really make sure you resonate, you need to have the right kind of insights about what are your customers wanting to see. So, in order to do this then, some additional data points, but I'm going to skip through this. How do you do this, right? So, what I see happening in the market out there is that you have to be very smart. So apparently in Silicon Valley, they are hiring astrophysicists to look at all the data that's out there because it's very comparable to the universe, or large kind of data sets that they work with. So there's more and more data and you have to look at that. So we really try to help you from an IBM perspective to put some of the data into more digestible, so you don't have to be an astrophysicist, but you really need to basically invest your time to not just produce content, but actually relate it to what the customers then want to see. So, why is this important? Because your customers don't believe that you're driving a really great experience, unless you are a brand that is behind the 37%, which of course all of you are. But generally speaking, what we find is that just think about yourself, right? When you go shopping or you go online, and how often do you have the feeling that the brand that you're dealing with doesn't actually really understand you as an individual, right? They categorize you, they put you in boxes, but really understanding a human being with all the data sets, that's the important piece to drive that customer experience. So in order to look at that a little bit more, let's have an update.
Customer data, you got tons of it, and you know your customer. Take Jack, for example. Jack loves waffles. How do you know? Because Sunday Jack said so on social. Last Friday, he'd been searching for a waffle maker in your online store. Boom! Now you're ready to talk to him, because you know Jack. Except Jack was actually just carving up for a 5K at the end of the week. He's not so much a waffle freak as a fitness freak, but you already assigned him to a target audience, so you're still talking to him about all things waffle. Jack deletes the email without opening it, and then he ignores your SMS and closes your ad. So you don't know Jack. And to give Jack an experience that would have actually been right for him, you should have had a platform that let your data show that he's not obsessed with brunch, he's obsessed with running. And you also would have known that Jack is actually Jacqueline. If your marketing can't make sense of your data, you don't know Jack.
All right, do you really know Jacqueline, right? That's the hard question. So I hope you like that. I like that very much. That's one of our own advertisements as a case study. But the point behind it is really important, right? You could actually have the greatest content in the world and talk waffles all day, but if waffles doesn't actually matter, then you're having the wrong content, right? So all of this is nice. You're probably saying, great, Alex. Everybody talks about AI and everybody talks about different marketing technologies out there. So let me try to introduce you specifically about what you could do, very specifically today. On the 16th of May 2016, we actually introduced something based on all these AI developments that we did, and I mentioned before, like Deep Blue and Watson. Basically introduced a so-called Watson Marketing Assistant to the market. Watson Marketing Assistant is an AI capability that can talk to you. for the sake of argument, it feels like a chatbot, but it's not really a chatbot, and I want to explain to you in a second why. So we are trying to give you an AI colleague, intern, or basically assistant that can bring you back insights into the data, can speak in natural language to you. You don't have to learn code. You can deliver back some answers, right? So you could literally ask it things like, how did a certain content asset that I used in the last campaign, how did that perform? How did it perform elsewhere? What type of segments performed well? So these kind of things, that's what you want to do. So the first thing that we want to make sure is that you understand that it understands what you're talking about, it reasons with you, it can learn, and it can interact. That's basically the baseline of why we call it AI. We don't want to replace you, that's important. So a lot of people talk about, oh my God, will I lose my job because there is AI out there? That's not the case. IBM talks about augmented intelligence, that's important. We want to help you guys, right? So we want to give you more tools, more power, so you can basically try to figure out where you should also invest your money. If you think about content marketing out there for ad space, it's really hard to spend the right money, right? So buying the attention is one point, but I keep finding that these questions that you're asking is, wait a minute, we are in the Philippines, I might be working for a brand that is not that large, doesn't have the large pockets to basically compete with multinational brands, possibly. How do I invest and follow the right way? Well, you basically come up with a great idea, that's all the content marketing aspect of it, but once you go to market with it, you want to make sure that whatever people are doing, you can immediately change engagement. You can immediately stop engagement. So I, for instance, work with a lot of banks in the AP region that once they market a credit card to their customers and they pick up the credit card, even they don't have the funds to keep bidding for it, right? So even they need to stop bidding for the product when somebody already bought it. Same thing with you. I mean, you shouldn't stop buying chocolate, obviously, as per the presenter before. But we really try to enhance you. So you're basically on the left side here. Humans are really great in generalization, coming up with great ideas, imagination, you're compassionate. All of these assets basically are something that you bring to the table. But there are some things that the author that was mentioned before, Mr. Feldman, actually also wrote in his Thinking Fast and Slow book. We're really bad in other things. We're very biased, for instance, right? When it comes down to risk or looking at numbers, we basically try to pick the wrong answers, generally. So that's where really the AI system comes in on the right side. We basically try to automate things, make it faster, make it scalable. So you can put market campaigns running out there and then have the AI look at it and come back with answers for you instead of you going through reports. So what do we do? So the first thing is we can give you a couple of services, right? So I talked about speech to text or text to speech. So we can, for instance, take human language, feed it into the AI algorithm and ask it, what type of human being are we dealing with? It gives you back 85 plus data points, and you can use them for each individual. So I could, for instance, say, is this a person that is very adventurous? If I'm selling insurance, it might be good to know that. And I can basically derive that from the interactions I might have with that customer already, by the human engagements that we record. You might actually look at empathy, which was that personality insights that I invited you to look at, right? Just then where those data points go and deliver back those data points. Or you can have the Watson Marketing Assistant. So the Watson Marketing Assistant is a system that we trained to understand marketing. It understands campaigns, open rates, click rates, conversions. It understands what content is. Basically also understands imagery, which I'll come back to in a second. But it does all of these things. It can look at context. So what content have I used where and why? It can then come back with outcomes. So how does that look like? The intern can grab stats, the colleague can do the work for you, and the advisor can give you options. And the real examples, and I hope you can read that. The first example, let me go a little bit over here so I can read it off the screen for you. So this type of chatbot lives within the marketing solution from IBM. It can be popped up in a window, and you can basically ask it, Watson, show me all lists in my organization. You could ask it, show me all lists with the title popcorn in my organization. Show me all lists that include an image with a tree in my organization. Right? So you could literally try to go down to that level. So the first thing it does is it brings back content faster or insights faster. You can literally ask that in human language. You can ask that in a spoken word. So we have a microphone icon here down here. You can record it, basically understand what you're saying, and then feeds that back. The Philippine market has a very good English-speaking market. Me as an Austrian German speaker, it understands me too. So you shouldn't worry about that. But basically, you can understand that, or you can basically write it. You can basically chat with it. You can literally ask it, show me your lists for my Valentine's campaign that I used in the last 2 years with the target audience in females. And it will come back with that within minutes, seconds, if you will. If you have to do this yourself, understand the data, it can take you hours, right? And if you have to build a report and have to go to your colleagues in some of the different departments in your organization, it might take you days. This thing can do it automatically. Next example would be, we can analyze something, right? So when you think about your subject lines, right? That's part of your content that you're developing. How does the subject line resonate with the audience? Is it a positive subject line? Is it a negative subject line? Should you use different words? It will highlight words, that's how their effect is. Basically tries to give you an answer about what is the, for instance, the how enjoyable is it to read that subject line. So some of these things I think are very helpful, right? Because it literally tries to analyze the content that you're providing. But then we can go further, right? We can basically try to link it to user attributes. So you could say, like I said before, show me everybody that is in my Valentine's Day campaign that is female and has not bought any chocolate in the last 6 months. Obviously, you have to work in an organization that has those data points, doesn't understand the data points that are not there, but it will be able to basically analyze those on the fly and come back with an answer. So I think that if you think about your organization or your content, that is something that would be very helpful. And then it can actually try to tell you what you should do. And that's really what we're working towards. So parts of that is already available, parts of this we're working on. But it can, for instance, tell you, by the way, I'm making this up as I go, but by the way, actually men like chocolate too for Valentine's Day. And you should basically target this type of segment with this type of campaign because we found, Watson found, that there's a linkage between this segment and the response rate or conversion rate. And I think that is the next powerful thing to help you, guide you through those decisions. How do you link the content here? And last but not least, you might think, wait a minute, Alex, this all sounds great, but this is a machine. And I watched Space Odyssey 2001. That was a really bad idea with the machines there. And then all these other movies in Hollywood where AI is taking over and it's a bad experience. We actually show you exactly why Watson came up with the answer. So you can yourself learn, wait a minute, why did it come up with this suggestion, right? Why did, maybe sometimes also doesn't understand what you're asking it, so you can tell it, by the way, this is wrong, so it will take those learnings. But we basically give you the transparency and clarity about what exactly happened. So you can see the whole conversation tree here, what it does with the words, how it understands the words, how it derives the answers, and comes back to you. But that's not everything. There's 2 more that I want to raise quickly with the time I've left. How many of you in the audience, let's try this, show of hands, how many of you have a digital strategy where you put a lot of content on digital domains, websites? Anybody? You're all in print? You're just polite, you just don't want to raise your hands. Okay. So I'm assuming that not everybody's in print. Most of you might have a website or social media channels out there. There is one interesting experience, right, which is happening with mobile devices. So I'm just going to take my phone in for a second. Isn't it annoying when something doesn't render and you need to do this to actually read the content? And then even worse, you have to pinch it. Or even worse, you're having your coffee or phone in one hand and you actually try to open it up and read it, and you have to try to pinch it with one arm and stuff like that. Terrible, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we would be able to understand that that's actually happening with our content? That the customers that we're dealing with actually having the same exact experience on their Samsung device, on their Apple device, Maybe there's a brand new device coming out, like the new iPad, that has a different screen resolution, and we don't know actually what happens with the content automatically. So what we're going to do there? Well, we basically let Watson look at the experience on the website of everybody on the website and find those engagements where we see patterns of behavior that look like struggle. So any pinching, turning, going back and forth, re-entering things, we record those and can alarm you in your departments, hey, you should maybe look back here and understand why isn't this working. And maybe that will answer why some of the conversion paths work better and some others worse, right? And that's data that you normally don't have. And that's something that Watson can bring. And that's pretty easy. And a lot of people in AP are very excited about this because there's a lot of mobile strategy out there, a lot of mobile device users, and a lot of different new mobile devices coming out. And it's really hard to keep track of all these different environments. So understanding struggle, a key point, and something I would encourage you to have a look at. Again, if you're interested in struggle detection, you can just Google it. Or you can see my colleagues from IBM who are in the room as well, or myself, and we can have a chat. So struggle detection is one of the best experiences I've seen to drive, in combination with content, better engagement. So before I run out of time, let me give you, so I basically saved the best for last. This is really where I go back to content, so I hope I didn't bore you with a lot of data today. But let me ask you another question. How many of you use emails for content marketing? Some of you might still be all in print, but some of you actually do. So how do you keep track of your content? Right? Let's say you do this, you're in your job for 2 years, you've produced all types of content. How do you automatically find the Valentine's Day's content that you used a year ago? Maybe you stored it somewhere in a folder, maybe you used it somewhere, but then how did you know how many emails you sent with that content? Well, most of the companies we work with, we find that they actually don't apply any tags to their content because it's very tiring. You produce more and more content. Sometimes you maybe store what type of campaign you used it, but you don't know what's on the image. So here's a real example. If I work for an airline, I want to maybe change my marketing campaign. So in one campaign, I want to use the plane with the pilot on it, on the image. And in another one, I want to use it, a picture from within the plane where I have a customer being served some food in business class, right? How do you find those images in all the content that you create? Well, there's one thing you could do. You could feed the whole thing to Watson, and we basically tag it automatically for you. And then you can use it in your digital campaigns quite easily. Because what you could do is, so it understands all kinds of things. It understands color, what type of visual things are on it. So again, it digitally goes down to, is there a female person on it or a male person? It suggests a lot of different tags for you. And you can auto-upload all your historic content from the last years, for instance, and automatically tag those. It will categorize them for you, store them for you, and you can then reuse it automatically from that environment. If you have a content management system today, it can integrate with that. If you have a digital storage of content, it can integrate with that. It basically has the key thing about understanding what's on the image that you created and helps you find it faster and use it for your marketing campaigns. And also use that, for instance, for A/B testing, right? So I'm guessing that some of you are invested in that area and probably try, again, do I use a happy couple on the beach for my next campaign, or do I use a happy couple in the city for my next campaign? Might be different, right? A real example is that customers with an iPhone won't like to see a Samsung device on their advertisement, and you might not actually know what type of devices they have. So the tagging part is really interesting because you can also add your own tags, right? So you can teach it that in the Philippines there's a specific image that you use in your campaign. And it will try then to understand what it looks like in the image and starts tagging that as well. I think that is really exciting. And that's, I think, on a very high level what I want to leave you with. Before I finish my talk, I think now you understand why it's important to understand check-in. I think you understand it's important to understand data. I've shown a little bit about what AI looks like in marketing, what you could use. So struggle detection, content tagging, and the insights that we basically do with the marketing assistant. And why this matters is because out there in the market, the analysts start to think about that in 2025, there would be such a large push for applying